Hey, so this video is about natural time. So the subject came up yesterday because there was it was a blue moon, meaning 2 full moons in a calendar month, and it was in conjunction with a supermoon. And they say it was like not another one going to happen for some 30 years or something like that, or a long time, something like that. So it came up, and we were talking about the moon, and so the question came up, like, how often do blue moons happen? The answer is like every couple years. And then the other side of that being the black moon, which is when you have two new moons in a calendar month. And it also happens roughly every 2 years or something like that. And so we're sitting having lunch talking about this, like the frequency of these types of things. And so then it came up, like somebody said, well, like how many days are in a lunar cycle? And I said 28. And then somebody looked it up on their phone. I looked it up too, and it's the internet, and it says 29 and a half days. And it's like, okay, but how are we calculating that? That's the question. Because it's like, like how, I haven't really thought or looked into this or done the math, but it's like just surface level. It's like, well, because is it like an octave where what you're calling the eighth note is actually the beginning of the next octave? So it's like, that's the thing. It's like, where do you start and finish your calculations from? How are you calculating from full moon to full moon, or da 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 da, right? And so I got into it a little bit with my boss. He's like, no, it can't be right. It can't be 28 days. I was like, no, I'm sure of it. I mean, I'm pretty sure about this. There's a lot of stuff in spirituality about it. And the idea is, I was like, I'm sure, because like there's a thing, like there's a website, it's Planet Tortuga, and it's like Jose Arguelles, or yeah, anyways. And so Mayan time, calendar time, and like synchronous time, but it's the thing is it's 13 moons a year and 28 days per moon. And then that gives you 364 days, and then there's 1 day out of time. So like clockwork, this is a natural cycle that we go through here on Earth. And so then it kind of brought up this subject of how interesting it is, interesting that just like the difference between natural time and then the time that we use. Like, I live in the northern hemisphere here, and we do this thing every year where we in the spring we jump ahead. We compensate for the time difference, we shift the time so that you have more daylight hours either in the mornings or in the evenings. It's jump ahead and fall back. And so I think they're going to stop doing daylight saving times because it's not a natural thing, and it kind of can. I think the idea is that it can screw with your circadian rhythm, with your internal clock, and just like all of a sudden, you're out of sync with what's going on. And it was something that they did, I guess, back in the day to do with the railroads and stuff like that. And because, I don't know. But anyways, the point is that there is regular time, which is like, I guess, like, so we're talking about like a calendar month. So you have, 30 days has September, August, June, and November. All the rest have 31 except February alone. It's something like that, right? I remember the exact rhyme, but and then that's the funny thing, is like we use this calendar as a basis for keeping track of time, for keeping track of the year, and we revolve our lives around this Gregorian calendar. And it's like, but it doesn't have a correlation to anything that is going on, like a natural cycle, things that you can observe and that make sense. It's not based on, it's not based on something that's observable. It's not a cycle. It's just like this thing that's been implemented, and it doesn't even make any sense, because you have like November, Nov meaning 9, but it's November isn't the 9th month. September, 7, but it's not the 7th month. July is the 7th month. And October, oct means 8, but October is not the 8th month, right? And so we use this calendar, which doesn't really make sense. It's not in alignment. It's not synchronous with our natural environment, with natural time. And so that's why, I guess, on this spiritual path, if you care to align yourself with the naturally occurring cycles of the year, then you begin to observe these other this other frequency, this other natural time. And that is, we have the moon, which has a 28-day cycle, and then like from new moon to new moon, and like I said, 28 times 13 is 264. And then for myself, I take this to heart, I suppose. I like the idea of being in alignment. I like the idea of being in sync with my environment. And so I take the full moons and the new moons and the half moons, and I reserve those days for like a day of rest. Kind of like how in the Bible they say that God created the heavens and the earth or whatever in 6 days, and then he rested on the 7th. And of course, Christian people, they do rest 1 day a week, and that is Sunday for some or Saturday for some, depending on your belief and how you interpret scripture and that kind of stuff. So, but the thing is, and then what about when we have leap years and this and that? It's like, it's not in tune with just what is like blatantly obvious, like just like the natural cycle, that moon cycle. I mean, it's like clockwork. And so that's why it's nice to align with that. And so then I take those days, the half moons, the full moons, and half moons, full moons, and new moons, and those are my Sabbath. So a Sabbath is a day of rest. So just that being said, it straight away is, what do you call it? It is in alignment or like representative of female energy. Masculine energy is the active principle, and feminine is the passive principle. And everybody, we all have both of these energies within us to different degrees, right? And so, but on that day of rest, like even like with the Jewish people, they, in their tradition, it's like super important that on that day there's like a list of things that you're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to do any work. You're not supposed to press a button, pull a lever, do this, do that. It's like there's all of these things that are in place to stop you from to me, it's like engaging the masculine principle. It's like there is a time when you just have to stop and you need to embrace feminine energy completely, and meaning rest. So like on those days, when I worked with plant medicine, I would sometimes take that time. Sometimes I would go into nature, and sometimes I would take nature into myself. I just make sure, it's not like you don't do anything, but you take that, I would take that time to, just do all the little things that I normally say that I don't have time to do. Like have a nap, right? Or like call somebody, connect, have like, be sociable, get in touch with family, and just get cozy, just be fine with sitting around, or like being creative. Once again, a feminine quality, anything to embrace that nurturing and creating, and relaxing, just taking it easy, no pressure, no insistence, no drive, just like, let all that stuff go for a day. And of course you get back on it. So on Monday or whatever, or not Monday, but the day after your Sabbath. So to me, that's what that's about. And then certainly on the other side of that too, so like paganism, if you're aware of the wheel of the year, really easy to Google and get a picture of, and like an image of what that is. And it's just an observance of this natural time, because the earth goes through cycles and seasons to do with the light, which it, in turn impacts the climate and whatnot, and all kinds of things, and changes in our environment. And it's important, especially if you live outside or if you work with nature, to observe that and to be in alignment with it, because it tells you, by paying attention to it, you can know kind of what's coming, and where you're at and what's coming. So good stuff to know. And those are your solstices, which is like the winter solstice is around December 21st. And then the summer solstice, which is around June 20th, which is also very close to Father's Day. Of course, right? Because it's like the peak of the masculine cycle, all the way up to the very top, the longest day in the year. So then on the other plane, you have the equinoxes, the spring equinox and the autumnal equinox. And then in between those things, you have the cross quarters. And then, so at least as far as light cycles is concerned, it's like that celebration in between the spring equinox, and then in between the spring equinox and the summer solstice, the one in the middle, that essentially marks the beginning of summer. And then the summer solstice is the middle of summer. And then that next one is the beginning of fall. And then the autumnal equinox is the midpoint of fall. And then we go down to what it's like Halloween, which is the 31st of October or something like that, Halloween. And then that is essentially the end of fall and the beginning of winter. And so that's why during those times you see the changing of the season. It's like right now we're in this period where summer has the peak of summer has gone and the beginning of fall has started. And you see the leaves on the ground, and the trees here in Canada and British Columbia are starting to change color, and it's getting cooler, and we're getting more rain. We're having some sun right now, which is wonderful. But I mean, and so that's the eightfold wheel of the year. And I mean, just very basic paganism. Yeah, I mean, what I like from that anyways, just because it's something that's very observable and you can wrap your mind around it. And yeah, so interesting. Yeah, and then on those days for myself, I take those days as Sabbath days as well, where if possible, I will take those days for myself, and really take time to, I just devote the day to doing things just for me. those Sabbath days, and on the, but like on the equinoxes and solstices and cross quarters, it's also a good time to get together with other people. Certainly, like Christmas time, we have get-togethers, and then for the summer solstice as well, and the spring equinox, Easter, Ostara, right? I mean, it's another great time to get together with people. And then the autumnal one as well is getting, it's kind of like a harvest season. And so, like Thanksgiving, like being grateful for the bounty that we got from being alive on planet Earth, and being here to receive the fruits and stuff that she gives us. Right now I'm eating a pear tree. I've been eating all kinds of fruits, but right now the thing that I have is pears, and it's so nice to have that free organic fruit just as much as you want. I have a basket, and yeah, so, and like with the pagan tradition, I do believe, so they would have like fire festivals. So for this time, it's a great time to have a fire and hang out with people, and just reserve that time, honor the changing of the seasons, honor what the significance of those different days are, because they all do, as it kind of shifts from masculine to feminine energy, and around in a circle, and just I mean, that's a whole nother video unto itself. But yeah, I think that's the basis of what natural time is. And so yeah, and I just do my best with it. I can't say that I always, like when I'm just slammed with stuff, sometimes it's like I just stop paying attention to the moon cycle. And some people be like, oh, it's a new moon or the full moon. And it's like, oh, but I think that it's important for me, when I do pay attention to it, I feel like it's real. Like I've observed the fluctuations in energy that I have felt, and also in speaking with others that are around me, that as we go through, say, like the monthly cycle from new moon to full moon and back to new moon, over those 28 days, there is a prevailing energy which a lot of people go through and experience. And so, and then on those days, those Sabbath days, the new moon, full moon, and half moons, it's like there's something about those days where, at least for myself, it's best not to do anything. It's almost like the energy is in flux. It is going through a transition, and so that's not a day to be making decisions, or to be making decisions or doing things, being really active. It's a time to just like, okay, take a second for it, and honor that spell of time. So, and of course there is more to all this stuff, but that's just like the basics of it. Because aside from like the diurnal cycle, which is like our daily cycle, and then our lunar cycle, which is the 28-day cycle, and then the yearly cycle, and then there's the great year as well, which is the 26,000 year cycle, which as my understanding is, December 21st, 2012 was, because if we're talking about an energy shift from positive to negative, like going from a full moon down to a new moon, it takes, so that's a half of a cycle, because a full cycle is all the way back up. So then that half cycle is of a 26,000 year calendar, it's 13,000 years. And so that was what they say, is that like around 13,000 years ago, that was the destruction of Atlantis. It's when Atlantis started to experience some pretty big catastrophic disasters, and then 13,000 years, all the way down to the epitome of the negative pole, to darkness. Like, you know, things are as backwards as they could be. And then now, past that, we're moving back towards the light. And so that's why, like, now people are getting way more organized and way more, there's a lot of positivity. There's a saying, the more you shine the light, the more you see the dirt. So we're seeing a lot of stuff that was previously hidden and not being talked about is being talked about, and is coming to the surface so that it can be processed, so that we can move beyond some of this negative energy that we've been dealing with. And negative just meaning segregative. I mean, because the feminine and the negative pole are the same, but it's not like good and bad. It's just about either the masculine is integrative and connective, whereas the feminine is more about the self as opposed to the collective, and they're both important, of course. So yeah, cycles within cycles within cycles within cycles, and yeah. You know, and I think with this stuff, it's like all that you can do. It's not so much a matter of belief. It's just like if you're aware of it, then you can just have an experiment for yourself and be like, okay, well, I'm going to pay attention to the fluctuations that I have in my attitude, behavior, mentality, the motions that I go through, physiologically, psychologically, mentally, emotionally, over a period of time. And it's interesting what you might find. That's all that I can say. And just one last thing that I think that's important to note is that it's like, also when you're looking at this stuff, things to do with astronomy, astrology, and stuff like that, because there are things going on all the time, and there's a common, not the best way to say it. There's a common thing that people say. It's like, oh well, just to say it, it's not that the moon is influencing you. It's important to not be under that delusion. It's not that the Mercury retrograde is influencing you. It's not that the stars are influencing you, the planets. It's not that the moon is influencing you. What it is, the teaching is that it's just a reflection of the changes that are going on inside of you. And so that's a huge distinction between essentially being victim to something that is going on that is out of your control, as opposed to something being a reflection of a naturally occurring cycle. So that, and then if you can understand what that means energetically, spiritually, for what it's worth, psychologically, then you can make a choice to align with it. And then once again, along the lines of those, of like having an experiment and seeing, keeping track of how you feel and just noticing over time. I mean, like if you're alive, you probably got some days and some weeks and some months and some years. And so like, just once you start becoming aware of this, you'll be like, oh wow, it does seem to be a thing, right? It's not like this just like a fancy idea that somebody made up because it made them feel better or cozy, or it's more like science. It's more like it's physics. Yeah. So yeah. There was one other thing I just thought of, but I just can't remember. Yeah, so natural time, yeah, it's just physics. Yeah, I guess we'll just have to leave it at that. So, but it's interesting. Yeah, I've paid attention to it for years, and it for me rings true. And like, I've looked into it a lot. I've written about it quite a bit too. And for me, it's not like it's a philosophy, right? It's not like it's a belief. It's something that I've observed, a cycle that I've observed repeating over and over and over. And it really helps. The thing too is to know how to interpret those signs. That's like the big thing, or else what do you do with the information? You would just have information. But it was just right on the tip of my tongue. Yeah, just about how it's not it's not that it's the thing that's affecting you. And yeah, anyways, I think that'll do. Yeah. Oh yeah, that was the thing. It's just like, so one of the things that's quite common that people will cite regarding lunar phases is to do with a statistical anomaly, right? It's not an anomaly, but like a statistical thing, phenomena is the word, of where on a full moon there are more murders that take place. There are more we'll just keep it at that. I'm not sure about the other stats, right? But on full moons there is something which it's like it creates, I say that loosely, right? But just to say it, it's like on those days there's more murders, right? Statistically. And so as I understand it, it's because there's this there is an abundance of masculine energy. So masculine energy, just like feminine energy, can be beautiful and it can also be toxic. And so certainly when you're on like a super, the masculine extreme, the apex there, the highest point, so not a whole lot of feminine energy there, not a whole lot of balanced energy, you have a lot of you're like the mind is a lot of the time, or I would say that the mind is associated with masculine energy, thinking, the ego, the mind, calculations, analyzing, categorization, assumptions, all that kind of stuff that is like the mind and the ego. And so the reason why there are so many murders, I would say, is because you can intelligibly reason all kinds of things. You could be like, oh, well, because of this and this and this, therefore this, and then use that as a justification for a form of action, right? Whereas like when you're dealing with the feminine energy, which is the intuition more, right? And feeling, it's like, it's not about, because this is like a focused form of perception where you're looking at details and making calculations, but the intuition is an unfocused. So the way that it manifests is in just very simple yeses and nos. It's like, should you do that? No. Right? It doesn't feel right in your gut, and you just know it because you're tapped into something that's much deeper than the shallowness that you're working with up here, because your mind can only calculate using known factors. So it is just an extremely limited form of perception and way of to use your mind as a guiding mechanism, as a resource for navigation in life. Is just like you're selling yourself short, essentially. I mean, you can use this thing to sort out some of the details once you've come to the understanding by checking in with the heart space and with the intuition. Because it's like, as I understand it, it's like your intuition and your imagination, those are your essentially those are your they are your connections to higher level dimensions. And so, and that's like what I would say that the issue is with the main issue with the AI technology these days, aside from the ethical concerns about how people will use it and stuff like that, it's just like, if you're, but certainly for automating some tasks, absolutely. But when average people start going to a computer program which isn't tapping into higher dimensional frequencies and ignoring your own built-in natural gateway to like things that are so far beyond your mind or some computer's ability to comprehend, grasp, or calculate, or bring to you, it's just, yeah, it's a real, you're selling yourself short. Yeah. So yeah, anyways, I think that's this video.